Alright, shake your money maker, baby. Now, I don't know where that came from. Thinking a little bit of James Brown, shake your money maker, baby. And I think maybe the reason I was thinking that was this kind of like that part of the song and shaking your money maker. Was TNA shaking their money maker? No. TNA did not do very well in this. They did not do well in this August 8th show. I was not entertained very much in this show. I don't know if this was taped. I think it was. If this was live, to me personally, it just felt like there was things just made no sense and were just really loose. The first thing that pissed me off, we have not seen Tazz for about 2 weeks on commentary. It doesn't matter how you feel about Mike Tenay. If you like the guy, if you don't like the guy, having a Jeremy there, a JB, made the dynamic of the commentary much more palatable. What do we get? The very opening of this show, that little small segment, the tiny little small segment, we get Mike Tenay in the corner with Tazz, Anderson, and Bully Ray saying, "Get the fuck out of here, I'm going to kick your ass if you don't leave." What do we get for the rest of the show? Part of the show, we got Mr. Anderson with Tazz and JB, and then Tazz with JB by himself. I was completely turned off from this. I think this might have turned me off from the show 100%. It wasn't the fact that Tazz went back to the same old ways he'd been as an Aces and Eight guy. It was the fact that Tazz has not been good on commentary for quite a while. He's been slipping very badly. He sucks. The Aces and Eight part made it worse. When Todd was there, it became palatable. Very palatable, even with Tazz there. Now, when Tazz was taken out and it was just Mike and JB, it was completely palatable. I was not annoyed with it or bored with it. Now, this turned me off from the show. So, when we have the opening of the show, we have Tazz coming out with Anderson and the Bully Ray segment in the ring was completely thrown off by him having to deal with Tazz. I'm sorry. Tazz is not relevant anymore. If he was in the ring doing some business in the ring, I would say, okay, he's an old guy that tried to do some business in the ring, but he can't go no more because of his broken neck. So only thing he can do is talk. But now he can't talk. And this just threw it off for me. When Tazz was talking, I didn't care. When Bully Ray started to talk, I tried to pay attention to it, and he was trying to talk about Sabin having a tag team match with Devon against Sabin, somebody he didn't know from Main Event Mafia. And then he tried to talk about Ortiz that didn't make any fucking sense because we don't even have any backstory for that. And that leads me into the next segment, which does bring Bully Ray into it, and it does bring not Anderson. You see, I really didn't have a lot of interest in this show. You have Bully Ray, you have Tito Ortiz, and then you have Angle. What do we get with Tito Ortiz? I'm not even playing around. I'm just getting it done now. Tito Ortiz pretty much saying, you're asking for questions. I don't have that many answers for you, but you will find out in Hardcore Justice. I could say, if this was a guy who's already gone through OVW, who has gotten a chance to talk a little bit, get a little polish, I would understand him giving it as small as possible. But this is an MMA guy, that's from Bellator, who is an old legend. Excuse me. I've been sick, sorry. It's one of the reasons why this is late. I have not been feeling well. But, look, Tito Ortiz has been around for a long time. He's been a badass man for many years until the last 5 years. He has not been doing good, as far as I know. Rampage Jackson, the same thing. So, them doing this, I understand there was been some subscribers that have been saying, I think Tazz 2002, I can't remember the rest of his name. I'm sorry, dude, if I botched your name. I'm sorry. But he did say this is hyping up for November, which I understand. I found that out. But by throwing him in there without any backstory or storyline, if there's one after Hardcore Justice, fine. But at this moment, there is so little to work with Tito Ortiz. They have to throw a Kurt Angle at him like they did with a Rampage Jackson in the hopes of making it interesting. And I have my thoughts about a Kurt Angle, not in this review, but I will be doing a debate of the week. I will be seeing if I can upload it the same day as this, so be looking for it. But seeing a Kurt Angle there did not save this segment with Tito Ortiz. Seeing a Bully Ray after that trying to hype up what was about to happen later tonight didn't work either. I just didn't feel it from these guys. It just felt awkward, like there was no real thought in this. They threw Tito Ortiz out there with the most smallest amount to talk about, and then they gave Angle and Bully Ray nothing to work with. I'm not saying Angle's the best guy there. He's not. But if you give him at least something decent to work with, he at least will do as much of an effort as he can. Bully Ray, we know, is a good heel, but in this case, he just looked terrible. He looked terrible in the beginning of the show. He looked terrible before the show when he got Mike Tenay kicked out, and then he looked terrible here. So how did the match go? Well, I'll tell you. We thought we were going to have Sting with Chris Sabin. What did we get? A little trick from a Sting where Angle comes in to help him. And the match was just standard. The person who won this was Chris Sabin, hyping up for Hardcore Justice on the 15th next week. This was good for Sabin, that he needs to get as much pops as possible, but honestly, throwing a Tito Ortiz into this really is taking a lot of steam out of it for me personally. Now, I'm going for the BFG series right now. The first BFG series is Hardy versus Joe, and I felt this went along with the show. I know Hardy can do good work. I know Joe can do good work. But for me personally, I just didn't feel a spark from these guys. I know you guys will say that the crowd was hyped for it. They were cheering at one point, or many points in it. But for me personally, I mean, they did the work. But there's something extra you have to get from these guys. You can't just say, oh, they did the work in the ring, it was great, it's like ROH. No. You have to get a certain spark, a certain type of feeling you get from these guys. When they talk about in-ring presence, they're not just talking about the work you're doing in the ring. You got to be able to project something to the crowd. Now, the crowd, they were all right for this. But for me, it just felt like there was something wrong. Like, I felt that because Mr. Anderson was at commentary and Tazz was at commentary, it completely overwhelmed the entire match itself for me. And then when Hardy won, because Anderson, the only thing he did was stand up and take his headphones off a little bit, distracts Joe, and then Hardy wins. It just didn't feel right. Don't get me wrong, it was not bad work in the ring for those two. But to me, if you're trying to do something properly, you need more than that. Now the next match was with Magnus versus Anderson. I wasn't too interested in this match after what I saw with the other one. I wasn't. So it's kind of hard not to feel biased about this for me. But I can't say that what the outcome wasn't interesting. It was a standard match between Anderson and Magnus. But seeing a Robert Roode come out and hit Anderson, which cost Magnus 10 points. He was the one that was on the leaderboard. He just lost 10 points. So this kind of made up for it, counting on what was going to happen later in the night, which I was very upset about when it was coming into it, and I'll explain later. Now, I'm going to go to the... I'm going to get this over with. ODB and the tag champs, which are basically forgotten about, which is Storm and Gunner versus Bromance, with the only person I cared the most about, which was a Mickie Jane. Mickie Jane in the earlier that show came to Bromance, not Broman, and pretty much said, you must be focused. Look at me, focused. I'm still interested in the Mickie Jane heel turn. She still, to me, is a sexy, oh, that power tan woman, I'm sorry. There's only a few women in wrestling. I would, if I could choose any woman, you guys already know my #1 woman I love the most. Trinity McCoy. I'm telling you right now, going by promotion, Miss Mickie Jane is number one. She's the number one woman I love. I'm sorry. If she went back to WWE, I would have a very difficult time here because I love me Layla L. I love me my Trinity McCoy, my Naomi. And I love me my Mickie Jane. If they were all there in that same promotion, I would have one hell of a time choosing. Because I am truly in love with a Trinity McCoy. But with a Mickie Jane, it's kind of hard not to love her as much. She's a very gorgeous looking woman. You don't always, this is what guys don't understand. You don't always need a woman with big tits and ass to be highly attractive. Trinity just has something very special. It's not because she has a big ass and lovely pair of tits. And I should know that better than anybody because I dated and had married a woman very curvy. I was dating someone that was even more curvy than Naomi. And I mean that. But it always takes a little more than that. So I'm sorry I kind of went off track. I guess it's because I didn't care about the match. Really, I feel sorry for Gunner and Storm. They have been completely forgotten because of the BFG. This is how much they've been forgotten. They've been forgotten by the BFG series. They've been forgotten by Main Event Mafia. They have been forgotten by Aces and Eights. They have been forgotten because of what's going on with AJ Styles. That's 4 different things that's going on, and they have been buried. So I feel sorry for these guys. Who won? It was the tag champs with ODB, and I'm sorry, seeing what happened after the match was over, that ODB was attacked by Gail Kim, and then when ODB turned around, she gets attacked by Mickie Jane. Just makes it even worse for the tag champs because they're there as an afterthought to help a ODB, a Gail Kim, and a Mickie Jane feud. Or possible feud. I feel sorry for these men. I'm sorry. I just feel sorry for them. Now, the match that got me the most upset. Kaz and Daniels. The reason I got upset is, I believe I said this in the last match they had. Christopher Daniels won the last match. I didn't want to see Bad Influence break up. I didn't. I love Bad Influence. They're the only team that's left that was entertaining. Dirty Heels are separated now. Stereotypicals are not together, which we didn't care that much anyway. Storm and Gunner are not even shown. So those are the only 2 people that I feel that were the best tag team we had. And now they were pitting them against one another. I was thinking when the match was going to come down, they break these guys up now, it would be a big loss. It would be shameful. But what do we get? We got some good chain wrestling and in-ring work. But at the end, what do we get? A double countout, baby. We got a double countout. Now, do you think that's cheesy? Yes. Do you think that it wasn't great? Yes. But do we lose a team of the Bad Influence of the Kazarian and the Christopher Daniels, Francois and Philippe? No. Thank goodness. Thank you. And then it gets more interesting after that. We get a Robert Roode coming out again. After nailing an Anderson and screwing over a Magnus and doing a pretty good interview after the match, saying, I'm going to do what I have to do and I'm going to win. He says now he's teaming up with these 3 as a threesome. Oh, I can't believe I said this. With these 2 men as a threesome, and their only goal is to get the world championship. It sounded like they were trying to put Fortune back together, but they didn't state it. So what does this mean? We now have a 3rd faction, even though it's not mentioned as a Fortune. Is that good? To be honest, yes. As much as it sounds like that's a clusterfuck waiting to happen and already has happened, I have no interest in Aces and Eight. I'm almost completely, after what happened with Tito, Ortiz, and Rampage Jackson, I'm almost ready to write off a Main Event Mafia. I don't know what they're going to do to Hardcore Justice, so I'm trying to keep an open mind. So that's the reason why they're still written in for me. But seeing these 3, seeing the two very entertaining Bad Influence and a Robert Roode who's trying to change himself into what he used to be or something better could be interesting. They're not a faction, but they are together. It could still become a clusterfuck. And I'm hoping that something more interesting comes. Let those three talk and do something entertaining more than fucking people over in matches. And you could get me very interested, because these three have been known to be interesting. And the last thing I want to talk about is what happened with Brooke Hogan, saying at the very beginning of the show, when the contract signing between Sabin and Bully Ray was done, that simply, if Bully Ray loses at Hardcore Justice in that steel cage, he will no longer get any title shots. How do I feel about that? It makes sense. If I'm right about what's going on with Anderson, there will be a faction fight between Aces and Eights. Bully Ray and Mr. Anderson. If I'm wrong, fine. But if I'm right, this is a necessary thing to finally destroy Aces and Eights. But then that doesn't mean that the main event Mafia will be gone. They'll just take their place. That's how I'm feeling it right now. So, seeing Brooke Hogan be the one to present that was not too bad. She wasn't great at it. But like I said before, if she's going to have to be involved in this situation, it makes no difference if she is fucking terrible or she's the most wonderful person. TNA must give her more segments to make the storyline work, or if it's going to end up like a Tito Ortiz where there's nothing there. So how do I rate this show? To be honest, it wasn't that good. I'm going to give it a C+. Yes, I'm giving this a C+. It was not a good show. I'm sorry. I'm glad that Kaz and Daniels are still together. Now Roode is with them where there could be something good. I am completely disgusted about Tazz being back and doing what they did with Mike Tenay. I'm not a Mike Tenay fan, but he was palatable when he was with Jeremy Borash. So I'm giving this a C+. So I hope you enjoyed the Zane's View, and subscribe and comment to my channel, ladies and gentlemen. Give me a thumbs up if you can. I will be doing a debate of the week on Sabin, Rampage Jackson, and Tito Ortiz if I can, and what I think is going to happen a little bit along the ways before a Hardcore Justice going into a Bound for Glory. You guys have a good day now.